Drop in the untold stories of industry leaders, influencers, and insights on future innovation. I'm John Davidson, and this is the DLC Drop Podcast. Welcome to another episode of the DLC Drop Podcast. Today is my pleasure to welcome founder and host of Dallas Meetup, Carson Gibbons. Thank you for joining me here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. You know, it's crazy. We met 2 weeks ago, I want to say on LinkedIn.
Yes.
We met a week later in person at your meetup at Hero in Victory Plaza in Dallas, Texas. And here you are on the podcast.
Yeah, it all lined up serendipitously. I appreciate the opportunity to come on with your audience and talk a little bit more about Dallas Meetup and what we're up to.
Absolutely. So if you're trying to get on the podcast, I think the path to success there is build the biggest networking event in Dallas, and you're very likely to get
hosted in the next 2-week window.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I was really surprised, when we connected that I hadn't heard of Dallas Meetup. And then I started researching it a little bit and I started asking some folks about it. And two pieces of feedback came back consistently with people. They said it's a great event, well run, well planned, and a lot of people attend. So beyond that, help our audience understand, what is Dallas Meetup?
Dallas Meetup is a vibe, it's kind of interesting. No matter what the cohort theme or the venue location is, you know that it's going to be good people out practicing long durations of networking stay, open networking body language, give to get networking methodology, and their value realization time horizons are certainly longer than this quarter. It's more built on a lifetime. So Dallas Meetup was really built to lower the barrier to entry for networking. I'm kind of a lifelong networker myself, having graduated and been placed in this market back in 2011. I went to 55 networking events my first full year out of school and kind of dated around to see who I wanted to go deeper with. And back in the 20-teens, that was American Marketing Association. Yeah. And kind of cut my teeth on their board, ascended to their executive board over a period of about 4.5 years, became president-elect, and ultimately had to resign because we were moving to Silicon Valley to participate in Y Combinator. But I've always participated in kind of that not-for-profit networking space, and it's been super rewarding for my career as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Well, some people who are listening may not fully understand the value of networking. And so can you help people? There is that term, your network is your net worth. I have a little bit of a following on LinkedIn, and I've definitely benefited from having all this access to folks, whether it's reaching out for business purposes, mentorship, both ways, or just getting eyes on content and events. One question for you is, do young people or people of this generation coming into the workforce understand the value of networking you're finding compared to older generations?
Yes, they have a more nuanced perspective on it because they were born and raised into the digital realm. So they've had social media from day one. So
connecting, following, et cetera, is very natural.
Correct. So they've married that digital IRL loop more seamlessly, perhaps, than even, Gen X, Gen Z, millennials, the boomers have. Right. How long have you been in your career utilizing LinkedIn as a networking follow-up tool to the IRL connections that you make?
Yeah, about 10 years.
So
yeah.
I think that they've had disparate access to networking opportunities. Like the big association opportunities that I'm describing back from the 20-teens, where, to your point, what is networking? How do you do networking at a high level? I very quickly understood that if I didn't put the event on, I had less of a sway there. I had less.
That's a great point.
I had less cachet around the room. Whereas if I hosted the event, if I planned the event, all of a sudden I had the charisma to walk up to everybody in the room and thank them for attending. How was your experience?
Right.
And my outcomes were more meaningful as a result of that. So becoming involved very early on was a big hack in becoming, more emboldened in my approach.
Yeah, I've put on quite a number of events, and I just recently had an experience. So I was the founding president of the Esports Trade Association. We did a number of annual events and, a number of quarterly events or, somewhere within the calendar other than once a year. And then our most recent event, which was fantastic, but I had then taken the step back to put in a new chair. And while still great, still knowing everybody, because it's like, oh, John, what's up? Just a very different feeling. But what I can tell you is what I love doing at events that I put on, or like with the Esports Trade Association, is telling people, this is my party. So if you need an intro to anybody, tell me and I'll make it, right? There's a lot of power there, not just in being the networker of, oh, I'm trying to meet people, but being the facilitator and the connector.
That's what no one shares with you at the outset of starting one of these organizations, is the undue risk leads to undue reward, because all of the deal flow, all the people getting hired, getting a date or an interview or whatever the outcome they were looking for societally, you get credit for all of that in kind of some way, shape, or form.
Yes.
And the other cool thing is that you, conversely, you just came to your first ever Dallas meetup.
Yeah.
Now you're going to tell other peers in the market about it for the November 6th cohort that we're doing.
That's right.
And you'll get credit for their attendance. They'll call you and say, John, that was absolutely worth my time. Thank you
Good
so
point.
much for sharing.
Well, I love that too, because what popped in my head was, yeah, there's all these benefits if you are the host or the facilitator of an event, but that's a lot of work. It's not something everybody has access to, the willingness or the understanding of how to do. But what you're sharing is, even if you're not you at Dallas Meetup, by inviting others, you can kind of play that same role in that connector and have a little bit more cachet there.
Everybody has a role to play. I always think of myself as the party promoter, and others might need to lend some of the SME credibility, as I would call it, more of the thought leadership, substantive layer to what we're doing. So I recently had an executive advisor that we'd onboarded to the team, and he was coming up to me after the last meetup, you know, kind of inquiring about the grunt work and step and repeat. What do you need? And I said, not all hires are created equal. Some of them are there for their subject matter expertise, and you might be one of them.
And some just have hands and feet.
Yes.
Which are greatly needed. Sometimes you got to get some of those wrinkles out of the step and repeat, or you got to the tickets or the t-shirts or
Funny story, the last meetup that we did at Backyard focused on health tech. I thought my photographer was going to take me out back and shoot me because the step and repeat was wrinkled, and it was all my fault.
Goodness,
so we had steamers, industrial steamers, ready to go for this next round of printing.
Yeah. Well, I want to take you back, and I want to understand how you got to this point. So can you give us kind of a view into your career path from when you really got started in business and how you found yourself to where you are today with Dallas Meetup?
Sure. I'll try to tie this with a through line. I was kind of alluding to it earlier, how I'd gotten my start networking, attending 55 networking events my first full year out of school, electing to go with American Marketing Association because I was in the agency world. So
yeah,
I was working at a branding agency, doing, you know, logo and identity palettes, brand naming, messaging storylines, web dev. Ended up splitting off from that agency with the back-end developer there. We had built about 35 WordPress websites together and really reinvented the wheel each time, kind of lost our shirt in the process, if you will, a lot of technical debt. And we wanted a more seamless way to syndicate content to applications. So that was our first startup, cosmicjs.com, headless content management platform that would allow you as a content modeler or editor to simply go into a WYSIWYG editor, you know, deliver the headline, the blog content to any internet connected application. Okay. So we left the agency, built a beta group of users for that, built 10,000 in monthly recurring revenue, started to get, you know, some pretty influential seed investors, angel investors out in the Bay Area that inevitably led to our incorporation into Y Combinator. So Y Combinator, kind of the Harvard of startups, if you will. It's the original Silicon Valley accelerator that's birthed brands like Stripe and Dropbox and Airbnb, kind of taking them from initial inkling of an idea to product market fit. So we went through that batch in winter of 19, so January through May of 2019. So I regrettably, resigned from American Marketing Association. When I inevitably came back to the Dallas-Fort Worth market with a different startup hat on, I went to my second startup, leader of their go-to-market team. I ended up joining the DEC network, the Dallas Entrepreneur Center. I just felt like I was kind of on an island, like YC founder, working remote, hybrid out of the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex, like wanted to find other early go-to-market people, startup founders, and kindred spirits. So I joined the Dallas Entrepreneur Center and ended up running their associate board for the next 2.5 years, doing quarterly mixers and really kind of cutting our teeth. So was always kind of focused on branding, advertising, media, content marketing, like the activation flywheel of sales, customer success, all of that good stuff in early stage go-to-market. So I
Yeah.
built consecutive startups from 0 to 30,000 monthly recurring revenue without a budget, just kind of feeling my way around a dark room. And that's all of the same things that we're doing to now exploit the Dallas Meetup brand onto the market.
Yeah. So going through this, number one, I'm hearing all these different skills that have translated from branding to acquiring users for a platform. You're interacting with other entrepreneurs. You're working in a number of different startups. These are all things that I'm seeing have come together with what you're doing now. What was it that helped you recognize the need for a Dallas meetup?
This is one of the happy accident parts of the conversation, perhaps, because I think that hindsight being 2020, we look smarter than we actually might be. I think that some of this was see a need in the world and fill it. This was really born out of our own personal distaste for what we saw in the market, which was when you look at high level, like your hyper local acronymed associations are 501c3s. They're
Yeah.
consensus driven fiduciary board agency straddling relationships that come together to support an altruistic mission, purpose, or cause.
Sure.
They dictate our for-profit networking capabilities as
Right.
practitioners. Why is that? That seems insane to me. And it was through all of my copious service with the not-for-profit world that I started to understand that, oh, we're employees, we're almost at-will employees, paying them to work for them to disseminate their messaging.
Right.
What do we have to have this coupled, or do we have to? Could we actually decouple the altruistic mission, purpose, or maybe Con Ed layer of like a membership paywall, and just say we stand for the networking component?
Well, I think that's a great point, because a lot of times when you look at the typical nonprofit networking model, it's outdated from the standpoint of years and years ago. Like a trade association, for example, is if you wanted to meet other people in the industry, you had to be part of this group because there wasn't a way, or that was the best way, or where all the people you wanted to get involved with were for sure. Second was information on the industry, right? So newsletters, case studies,
White papers,
etc. And then the third, sometimes you're advocating for, certain things, or even dictating, like, with beverages, how much sugar is in a soda, sort of a thing, or advocating for that, for laws to change and such. But a lot of that's pre-internet or pre-social media, right? So when you look at a lot of networking group benefits, it's like, that sounds like LinkedIn to me.
They're almost dark age scholastic in nature. It's almost like the ivory tower institutions of higher ed, where this information used to not be readily available to the masses. Now it is. Google, ChatGPT. I don't necessarily need to be on the Cambridge campus to get the great education.
Right.
It's the same with these like paywalls of networking groups. American Marketing Association. They're going to publish some 750-page white paper on, Gen Z influencer marketing that's already 9 months, behind the curve.
Right. Rather than either subscribing to the outlet that is producing that, or having relationships with people close, etc. So, devil's advocate, with all of those things already taken care of, why do we need a networking group like Dallas Meetup?
Maybe we don't. It's just the market is telling us that we do, and that they're coming to support us with more emboldened enthusiasm each quarter. We really started with kind of the insecurity of, why would anybody want to come to this? And so that was really kind of the first inkling of the FOMO that we drive with our brand. We're a white shell black and white container brand, that it's your logo, your face that is our lifeblood, our total circulation, if you will. We are a Big Ten industry agnostic networking mixer series.
Yeah.
We kind of get to have our cake and eat it too, in that we're Big Ten industry agnostic, come one, come all, laptop class practitioners, 25 to 65. But we get to showcase a new segment of the Big Ten each quarter.
Yes.
And that's where we get to kind of drill down and be a little bit more honed in with a particular vertical. We can obviously tailor our sponsor conversations and everything around that, but it really just keeps the room not stale and our sign-up list ever evolving. So we'll actually showcase 35 incumbent VIPs in a particular segment of the Big Ten and drip them on our audience leading up to the event. Because we're showcasing them as thought leaders with a nice branding aesthetic layer, it's flattering. They want to be recognized. They want to be featured at this point.
Right.
Back in the day, I used to have to credential myself outside of Dallas Meetup to get a VIP to become a featured networker.
Right.
When I'm recruiting for cohorts now, they've already been to 2 or 3 Dallas meetups, and it's an honor to be a featured networker.
100%.
So how quickly those things change, but they really are our lifeblood. They are our marketing shtick. It's the FOMO that we drive by really come to Dallas Meetup to elevate your leads, community, and status. Those 3 things kind of encompass all the different aspects of community, FOMO, competitive collaboratism. That's not a word.
We just invented a new word.
That's actually occurring under the hood.
Yeah, interesting. Well, for those, I'm curious, attending meetups. I think everybody has been to a conference. A number of us been to these local meetups and stuff. A big question of value is, do you maximize the value you have in that situation? So some people are very good at that, especially extroverts, and very comfortable. Some people are okay, and some people don't know the first thing about how do I make a meetup worth going to. Can you give us some insights for those who have attended or may attend the next one? How can I get the most out of a Dallas meetup?
I have yet to, and that's exciting. I'm always rehoning my approach to my own event, attending my own event, for how do I actually maximize the outcomes from this? Because I haven't yet. There's so much money still left on the table. There's so much relational capital. There's so many connections that I could have made, photos I could have taken, shoulders I could have brushed in that process, that I'm still working on it. And I'm the architect, if you will. So I think that it's an iterative process. I keep trying to get better in terms of the way we architect the space to provide for connection. You know, how many people can we get on the step and repeat so that we can marry that digital to IRL loop connection with a lot of the new generations. If it didn't happen with a physical JPEG or, you know, an iPhone photo, it didn't happen at all. They need that actual feedback loop of seeing it online to verify that it occurred in their actual lives. So I think that that's an ever-shifting target. I actually recently tried to hire an executive assistant for the last meetup because I wanted more documentation of my own journey. I kind of go into a blackout because you encounter 1,000 faces and you can only retain so much. So I wanted better photos, better note-taking of who I actually talked to, that maybe I said I would follow up with, and who knows if that's actually occurring right now. And that process still needs to be massaged. So we've partnered with different applications and ecosystems, Mingly being one that provides for connection, you know, kind of offline, online, just a different connection point. I think that the best thing to do is post that you're going to be there, post the outfit that you're going to be in, make a plan, go with a friend, connect with somebody that you haven't connected with in a while, and be very explicit about the connections that you're looking to exit with. That could be a bucket of connection. I recently told a friend, your job is to go and network with these people, but I also want you to come to me at the end of the night. I want you to have identified another community organizer that has either a generic community or one that would fit within this brand that you're piloting. And I want you to be able to go and test out those waters, identify a different community, nobody overlapping, and go and test those waters. So use this as a springboard to identify net new.
Interesting. Yeah, one thing that we did at an event once was, it's not remaking the wheel or anything, but it's kind of like a speed dating type of tactic where to start a 2-day, and this was a 2-day conference, so you're kind of setting the table more than just a 3-hour meetup or what have you. And so we started off with just a very long table, and people had 30 seconds to just say, this is who I am, what I do, and you switch, and then you switch, and then you switch. And what it did very effectively was it just identified, who do I want to spend my time building a relationship with over these next 2 days versus, oh, you're great and wonderful, but the reason why I'm expensing this trip is not to make a lifelong friend. We love the ones we make along the way, but and then also, just as importantly, sometimes you leave an event and you're like, that person was there.
What was the criterion on which people were making their decisions on who to spend more time with at the conference?
So in that regard, so this is an esports and gaming industry event. So everybody is there from all sorts of different facets. So you have, the B2B providers of production and all of those things. You've got pro teams. Pro teams are looking for sponsors. So you have brands there as well. You have subject matter experts who work for a variety of different companies who are going to be speaking on panels. But I think, to answer your question, it's very case by case, right? Because if I'm a production company, for example, I'm looking for people who are putting on events, right? And if I'm a professional esports team, I want to find people who are interested in sponsorship. So I'm looking for that brand decision maker. And so what was great about those situations is that a group of very diverse experiences and skill sets and goals, but those that are complementary.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that, with your approach, which is very broad,
Mm-hmm.
and then also has that smart narrowing filter part with this last one was the CPG meetup.
Yes, we hosted 36 consumer packaged goods founders, investors, and even buyers. So to your point about the ecosystem, getting all the vendors, getting the full life cycle of okay, I need to make the product. Now I need to sell it somewhere. Now I need to market it. Who are all those people?
Yeah.
So for the next one, commercial real estate, it's very important that we get everybody from civil engineering to site selectors, EDCs, commercial real estate,
That's right.
tenant advisory, developers, the whole 9 yards. I wanted to go back to your point about maximizing the value because to your point about the different demographics mashing up at that meetup that you were hosting, they came with incentive structures already in place for who they wanted to connect with, right?
Yes.
I think people come to Dallas Meetup with that as well. So that's going to be different for everybody. A couple examples I've seen of people doing pre-work that manifested in positive outcomes. I saw somebody take a target list of 20 accounts and cross-reference that with the available list on LinkedIn and basically shoot out messages. Hey, I'm going to be at Dallas Meetup. I'll be in this corner of the bar. Stop by. I would love to buy you a beer. And they ended up buying 4 out of 8 beers and setting 6 follow-up coffee appointments.
Right.
They were raving about their hit rate stats that night as they were leaving, raving about the great time they had. That's a great example of, being, and it's also an example of where I see Dallas Meetup becoming more of a platform where brands will transact and do commerce and host their own micro events and pop-ups on the platform that is Dallas Meetup as we become larger and larger.
Yeah, your first point is a great one where, if I'm thinking about just the dynamic of attending an event, right? What I was doing before this one last week is I'm texting people to see who's going to be there, right? In fact, one of my friends who was going to be there had to do something with her kid and so wasn't able to show up. So I park and I'm like, oh, at least my buddy Aaron is going to be here, and then I'm like, oh, hope I find somebody else, right? So just how are you helping other people? How are you adding value to this situation? I think is really cool versus just what value do I get? And so your point of planning ahead, telling people where you're going to be, being the purchaser of drinks or what have you, gives other people who are attending, it takes away that anxiety of, do I know someone? No, I know somebody because this person has reached out.
It's the only way
Also
you
they're
could
going
have
to,
gotten there is that you know somebody in some ways.
right.
It's kind of the biggest word of mouth scheme of
Mm-hmm.
all time in some ways. But yeah, they all have those disparate inputs and outcomes as a result. But it's been fun.
Yeah. But yeah, just the fact of, I was thinking, you opened my eyes at that point because I'm thinking, usually it's afterwards, hey, how many meetings, how many cards, what have you, did you come away with? And then it's, no, how many am I going in with? Which is smart.
It's both. It's all of the above. I've
Uh-huh.
seen folks that the original goal was, the inconsequential client visits that you don't want to drive to Las Colinas or Fort Worth for an entire lunch, but
Mm-hmm.
you want to spend 5 or 10 minutes with them. That's
Right.
Dallas Meetup at scale. That was the
Right.
whole point. You know, in all of my sales outbound type roles, you always have those people that you're keeping warm,
Yes.
but they're not necessarily worth the expenditure of a full workday expense account, whiskey cake lunch maybe.
Right.
So throw all of them into the same room. Let's share them. Let's document
Mm-hmm.
them in our CRMs, and let's share the leads. Let's be the rising tide that lifts all ships. When you know all the connectors in town, you know everybody in town.
Right. And uh, also, when you have a reputation as a connector that you know everybody, it becomes true, and you know everybody because people reach out to you. Oh, Carson knows everybody. Hey, can you? And then you get a new connection.
Everything is a self-fulfilling prophecy with Google and AI, and it's been funny watching us feed all of these systems with the content that we want to see come out of it. And now we've been the number one meetup in Dallas since before our first meetup, John. So that was just something that we willed into existence, and now it is true.
Uh-huh. So how do you keep the train rolling down the tracks, right? So you've done this for a couple of years now, and you've had
One.
1 year. You've had tremendous success, especially I think the last one was the biggest one, right?
Questionable. I think
Close.
that and the community beer one that we did focused on venture capital and private equity back in February
Mm-hmm.
happened to be an 82-degree February day that helped
Okay,
us.
well that helps a lot.
I think
Yeah.
we ended up having almost 1,500 people come out to that one. And even looking at the website page views and the social media analytics, we hit a chord with that one. There was something about it being, I think, Dallas Finance, VC, PE,
Yeah.
a lot of those folks really just created that pressure cooker cauldron of FOMO in that cohort. And we're really gearing it for the cohort. So
Yes.
the 1,000 people around them are almost tangential goodness. But if I can make sure that you have FOMO as a featured networker, those 35 people in the room, we're trying to perfect it for them. Everything else will fall into place.
Gotcha. And then so what industry cohorts have you done to date? The last one was CPG.
We've done, the first one was economic development. So we
Okay.
had every EDC from Tyler to Tulsa and everywhere in between.
Cool.
Then we did, I believe it was marketing, creative, and digital as a discipline, just across verticals. That was kind of a different one. We're not going to go discipline focused anymore. That one felt like it became kind of a logo hunt of sorts. Like, let's
Sure.
get the CMO from every brand in town.
Right.
And just, that resulted in a lot of job seekers, I feel.
Sure.
Less substantive people trying to give to get in terms of the conversation.
Uh-huh.
We did marketing, EDC. We did venture capital, private equity. We did a health tech cohort in February at Backyard that we had about 35 innovative health tech, well tech, med tech CEOs, and then representatives from like the Baylor Scott and Whites, the children's healths of the world. That one was very cool to see that cohort come together, form partnerships, help each other. Some of them were going into Mass Challenge and Capital Factory together. And then most recently we did the CPG. We're moving into commercial real estate and property tech for November. Likely topics for 2026 include sports, media, entertainment as it relates to FIFA. I'm really excited to at some point do a transportation cohort that could encapsulate the Toyotas of the world, the Bell helicopters, the Darts, the autonomous driving, like the Moseys of the world. Like
Right.
there could be a lot of cool featured networkers in that cohort.
What may not be on your radar is that Dallas is actually number 1 or a close number 2 capital of esports in the United States.
That is true.
LA is kind of, as people are fleeing, it's getting closer, 1 and 2. But what's shocking is not only are there a number of professional esports organizations, FaZe Clan Esports is now here, Optic, Envy, Complexity, but because of where the servers are located for that Riot Games servers and then Epic's servers are in Dallas.
Oh, interesting.
So many pro gamers live here even when they play on teams that are represented by other cities because they're physically closer to the server. So one thing that we need to get on your radar is maybe we do a gaming and esports cohort.
We
and
do
collab on that.
I think that you should anchor that cohort for
Let's
us.
do it.
And I wonder if there's a way to tie that into the FIFA relevancy of next year.
There might be. You know, one thing actually one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're coming from traditional sports to esports or gaming, and I differentiate those two because esports is a microcosm of gaming as a whole.
Okay.
So esports is just the competitive games, and it's about 1.5 billion. But then you compare it to the gaming industry, which is bigger than music and film combined, and that's where the real scale is. But you have the engagement with esports. It's a longer story, but a common mistake that people make coming from traditional sports to esports is, oh, let's do a Madden tournament. Let's do an NBA 2K tournament. Let's do a FIFA tournament because they say, oh, I know sports. This is a video game. Sports, EA Sports, esports, right? That's all. And so these sports simulator games are not nearly as popular as many other competitive titles.
Interesting.
However, FIFA is an outlier.
Interesting.
Yeah. And there's a number of different reasons for that. That's a whole nother episode. But it is going to be really interesting when so many international travelers come to Dallas for the World Cup. Esports is way more popular internationally. So yes, you're attracting soccer fans, but unknowingly you're attracting way more gamers and people who are connected to this culture where it's normal in Europe and Asia much more than it is here in the States. And so there's a lot of opportunity. And I know that the various sports commissions and the EDCs around here, the way their brains are thinking is, wait a minute, when people are here for soccer, what else do we have that we can key in on?
100%. The plug and plays of the world with all of their sports activation stuff. That's fascinating. Yeah. I'm a novice when it comes to the whole esports world. So I could learn a lot from you. And
you're in the right spot.
I'm interested to learn more about, I was talking to a consultant earlier this week that actually specializes in like M&A of club teams like in Europe and scaling up, you know, they can go and do the whole Ryan Reynolds situation for like a Premier League team. And it's really about the stadium and the licensing and like there's a whole playbook as it surrounds that. I wonder if the same is true for these esports teams, like as they get bigger and bigger and the M&A, like will it be akin to buying the Washington football team of the future?
Well, a lot of investors have made that bet. And many investors have realized that
struck a chord.
Yeah, that bet should have not been made, and some have made the right ones. One thing about esports is it's so fractured. So a lot of people talk about esports in a different way that we talk about sports. So, you know, you don't say, John, are you a sports fan? Right? You say, oh, are you an NFL fan? Are you a basketball fan? Are you a baseball fan? Esports is about 20 different video games, all with different demographics. So the person who plays Call of Duty is not the same person who plays League of Legends or Rocket League. They may play Counter-Strike as well. There's some overlap on that with similar games, but still there's a differentiation there. And so, not to go on and on about it, but a lot of what I do in my consulting business is helping brands, agencies, and cities understanding this dynamic, this industry, and developing strategies, business development, and partnerships through that. But as far as, you know, somebody I have to give a shout out to, it's funny you mentioned international sports. Dr. Bob here, he's from University of North Texas. I'm on their advisory board for the Sports and Entertainment Management MBA program.
Okay.
And he has a lot of experience with international soccer, especially. He might still be, or at least was, involved in ownership of a Dutch. So he's from the Netherlands. So he was involved with ownership of a Dutch team. I'm not sure exactly what level, the lower level for sure. But it's so interesting how sport is not seen anywhere the same way that it is in the US, with the revenue, the branding. It's viewed so much more organically as part of life. It is not maximized at all from a sponsorship standpoint or a revenue standpoint. And a lot of it is just culture, and one could argue how healthy one is than another, but
I think you just compared and contrasted in America and Europe and our
generally,
mentalities
right?
and our outlooks on. Although I think America is going more European in some of its expectations for some of that.
Yeah, in what ways?
You caught me. I'm not prepared to answer the question, but I think in terms of like work-life balance and benefits, some of the things that we want as a society, some of the entitlements that we're growing accustomed to. Also, as we see AI kind of take off and maybe the 40-hour work week get disrupted here in the future, you see some of these school districts even going to 3 or 4 days a week. And
Anna, Texas, my mom lives out there, and I found out the other day they're going to school 4 days a week.
Really?
Yeah, no Fridays.
Interesting.
Yeah.
They're one of the exploding markets here in DFW.
Yeah, Melissa. Yeah, the way it goes from where I live in McKinney, Allen. Well, Allen's kind of to the side. McKinney, Melissa, Anna, up the 75 North. Yeah, and that place is just blowing up like crazy.
I grew up in Plano, and it used to be that's as far north as the tollway extended, was like up to Parker or somewhere. And now Frisco and Plano both have skylines, and it's all about Salina, Anna.
100%. Yeah.
All the way up there, all the way to Sherman at this point.
I was, the other day, I think Sunday, I was driving home from Anna to McKinney, and one exit said Buc-ee's and HEB, exit number 45. I was like, that's the most Texan highway exit I've ever heard of. But I want to take you back to the question on culture, or just the conversation around culture, because one thing that popped into my head and that may contribute to your success is the culture of Dallas. And so I've lived everywhere in the United States. I grew up on the West Coast in Central Valley of California, small town, but still California vibes. And then I spent a number of years on the East Coast. And I've been in Texas for about 14 years now. But people are different in different parts of the country. And I remember a friend actually moved from DC to Dallas, and I lived there as well. And I remember being like, man, I thought everybody was trying to steal my wallet when I first moved here. Everyone's so nice and greeting me. And it's like, oh no, they're just quite polite and Southern. And I would say Southern, I would say Texan, because that's a difference. But do you think that just the Dallas culture of collaboration increases your opportunity as a meetup company?
Yes, I view it maybe even more transparently than that. It's the collaboratism, going back to our new word. It's also the pretentiousness. Let's be honest. Like, even compared to Austin, Dallas is a better market to network in from an organizational perspective. It's easier to keep it concise and have kind of an airtight ship that you're running. We are a pretentious culture in Dallas. We are an aspiring culture in Dallas. What have you done for me lately? It's not Fort Worth where it's, who's your daddy per se. There's some of that, but there's a lot of new money and new transplants in Dallas, much more than when I was growing up. But I think that level of like, okay, I'm looking around, I'm looking out, who's doing what, that is certainly advantageous to us as well. So people want to help each other. People are also in it for their bottom line, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yes,
I
agree.
maintain that everybody that wants to volunteer with Dallas Meetup or be affiliated, they always start with I just want to give back. I want to meet everybody. And I always tie it back to, I need a hard-edged ROI, or you're not going to gain value from this long term, and
Yeah,
I'm going to have a retention
your
issue.
boss and your shareholders are hoping that you're doing more at this meetup than giving back.
Correct. Absolutely. So I think that we're perfectly poised where Austin has South by Southwest. Dallas doesn't have anything in its own culture besides maybe the state fair or something like that. That's like, it's certainly not, business to business oriented in terms of a conference. I think that we have a unique opportunity here to potentially be that next geo-specific South by Southwest type conference. So I think what you'll see from Dallas Meetup in the future is us continuing to lower the barrier to entry for networking with complimentary entry to Big Ten industry agnostic quarterly networking mixer series. I think you're going to see larger scale conference opportunities with multi thousands, tens of thousands of attendees on a different track networking con ed situation. I think you're also going to see more micro programming, micro events, the ability for small batch groups to get together based on special interests or what have you.
I was curious about that aspect of your, outlook strategy, because I love that you're industry agnostic and it brings so many people together. And a lot of products and services do lend themselves beyond a specific product or service, right?
100%.
And then you smartly filter it down a level to an industry specific cohort. So it's like, if I'm a marketing agency, I can just as easily have value at the CPG one as I can have at the tech one, as I can at, these real estate folks need some marketing too, right? And you can add in whatever product or service that makes sense there. But I was curious how you get even more niche and if that's the plan or a benefit for you.
I think that the niche enriches the experience and the layers, because there were certain agencies that I was targeting for sponsorship leading up to the CPG cohort because I know that they dabble in that. That's their main bread and butter. There's others that are really gung-ho on commercial real estate. That's really, we work with land developers, urban development type companies. So this would be their jam. So the layers that you can kind of put on top of that, I think are great and lead to a more nuanced conversation.
I'm curious too how you look at the various programming opportunities for an event. And maybe your answer has to do with even events that you didn't produce, but that you've been to. There are so many different models. Sometimes it's just, hey, there's drinks over there, there's appetizers flowing around, and there's a sea of people. Go meet somebody and be somebody, right? Then you might have the more, like we talked about earlier, this speed dating type model where it's, very like we are helping to facilitate these. You also have panels, right? Keynotes, Q&As. What is your thought and kind of take on the type of programming that makes an event great?
What we've done up until this point has been MVP. It's minimum viable product for the highest amount of ROI. So typically we're looking for a bar that has all the infrastructure already built in. Security, drinks. I don't want to bring everything in a la carte and have all these disparate vendors and fabricators and partners that something could go awry and ruin my guest's experience. The guest's experience is largely based on them walking in, seeing somebody they haven't seen in 5 years, standing next to somebody they've been dying to meet. That's the whole brand. If that goes right, everything else will go right and they'll have a great experience. So we never cut in with like sponsor conversations or make you listen to a rubber chicken spiel for our actual events. I have aspirations to do the panels, the conferences, the speed dating. I've seen that done at scale at FinTech Meetup in Vegas. FinTech Meetup is kind of something that I'm aspiring to be similar to in some ways, in that they have big corporate sponsors, multi-day conference in Las Vegas. They're a specific meetup.com alliteration that has done a great job with a simple brand and parlaying the success of others in their day jobs for this actual conference. So we've just been limited on the actual spaces that we've been able to partner with up until this point. So we have a great partnership with Workbox in Victory Park, where we do have access to like lounge space and classroom space that I want to utilize for more workshops and community, like maybe come find out more about Dallas Meetup. Here's a way to get more involved. But a lot of it has just been, what can we put out there that will produce the biggest wake possible in terms of growing our top line awareness? So it has been largely subscriber based. Get downtown, park your car. We're not going to charge you entry, but you're responsible for finding your way into the event and then documenting it. How do we get the most number of people to perform that exercise as possible?
Yeah.
Now we've acquired a customer. These quarterly mixers are our simple cost to acquire a customer. What we do with their rapt attention thereafter is almost up to us. And so all the things you're alluding to, I think, are in our future.
Cool. Yeah, it's really exciting to see the success that has come quite quickly, but also looking forward to see how that roadmap folds out based on the learnings that you experience. I am curious, another thing that appears to be right place, right time is the mass migration to Texas, right? You've got Chicago, New York, LA, other places. And so not only are your meetups providing an opportunity for people to do business together, for a lot of people, it's like, I got to meet somebody. I don't know anybody in this town. Talk a little bit about how that has influenced.
Just that we've gone to market thinking about the Google search query of that new to town person from St. Louis, because they're on our team. We recruited those people that have those fresh lenses. They're fresh to Dallas perspective. I think that's a valuable voice. And it's increasingly more the demographic that you encounter around here. Growing up in market, everybody was from Dallas. And then slowly but surely you started to see it's been growing for the last 30, 35 years. And now that you have the Texas Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ, all of these different outfits that are coming in, it's just, it's pronounced, obviously. Yeah. I think that it's a huge opportunity because when you look at the Google search queries surrounding meetups, it's new to Dallas, singles, Dallas business meetups, networking. And a lot of these search queries were the ones that I was running when I was in Silicon Valley or Baltimore at different stages of my career where I was new. And Baltimore meetup group, Baltimore networking event, like where do I go find the 50-yard line of the white collar folks that aren't at kickball tonight? Where does that exist? So I've kind of built Dallas Meetup with those search queries in mind and making sure our H1 tags are built to receive that audience that's incoming, because odds are is that if you graduated from Ole Miss 2019 or after and then found your way to Dallas, you've never been onboarded into a stereotypical rooted iMac, terminal situation. You never got taken to lunch your first day, or a stereotypical team happy hour. You've never been to an 1,000-person networking event because you're working hybrid, remote, where your team's bubble needs to be green, but I also need to see you in the office, hoteling. The expectations on the new workforce, they suck sometimes. Yeah. Let's be honest. And, they're supposed to be always digitally available and physically on demand. And I think that Dallas Meetup does a great job of just bringing those digital, social, and IRL vibes all together and producing that experience where it didn't otherwise exist.
Yeah, that's a great point. I've worked from home since 2019, and I work for myself now too, so it's an even lonelier situation at times.
Yes, the loneliest.
But I remember when I started working from home, I was working for the biggest production company in the world, and then COVID hit, as luck would find. But I'm a question asker. I'm an advice seeker. And so I was talking to some of my other friends because I don't know what to expect, Like, I'm pretty driven. I'm pretty ambitious. But if I'm working from home, will I work? Turns out I do, fortunately. But two pieces of advice that I got. One was have a dedicated place to do your work, so that work feels like work. Because the thing is, if you work from home, you never leave work because it's home, But the other one that I think is relevant to you, someone said, John, make sure you have human interaction every single day. And that doesn't mean you have to have a date or a lunch or a coffee. If anything, go to the grocery store and walk around, just like be around other humans in person. And one monumental moment that's relevant is the first ever in-person Esports Trade Association conference that we did in Chicago was the first industry event back from COVID. And I can tell you the anxiety planning that thing, and like the week leading up to it, the mayor is changing the rules. Like, now you have to wear masks again. And we're like, is this even going to happen?
This is 21?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so what happened at the event was two things that were both fantastic. It was either, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in 2 years, you know, or I've seen you and talked to you continually for the past 2 years online, but never made that physical connection in person.
That hits different.
Yeah.
I've been on Teams or Zoom or whatever with you for the last 24 months, and now we're physically together in Chicago or Tampa or Vegas. That's a different type of connection too, and it matters.
It does.
It was a lot more emotionally fulfilling, and
absolutely.
I had that same experience. I was at a corporate consulting gig, side projecting Dallas Meetup, rolling off of the Deck Network. I started Dallas Meetup to augment my consulting day job. Ended up becoming more known for the Dallas
Funny how that
Meetup hat.
works.
But
Yeah.
I forget why I was even going down that tangent.
The in-person meetup connection.
We had sales reps from all over America that would come, and Dallas was kind of a hub for these leadership dinners and different strategic retreats. And it was so gratifying to get to meet Al, who I hadn't seen in person in 2 years.
Absolutely.
And get to go have dinner with him. That was a different type of relational outcome that was gratifying.
Yeah, and I think it just shows us that no matter how connected we are online, there's something inside us that requires an in-person connection. I once heard a friend of mine, Josh Ratliff, a great friend and mentor to me, he said, John, if there was one group of people who didn't need to connect in person, it would be gamers. Because gamers are technologically savvy, always connected online, right? Nowadays, we can play across the world with our friends, and we create great friendships with the people we never meet. But if you think about events where people are not only attending but participating, you think about Comic-Con. You see these esports tournaments, there's the same energy as a hockey game in there, which would surprise a lot of people. And I think that's true just for everybody, and for people, whether they're advanced in their careers or especially people who are younger. Man, we're always on our devices, but our in-person and real physical connections are greatly lacking. And that's another thing that Dallas Meetups is helping folks solve.
It provides them an opportunity, a canvas to, try to perfect that, because I don't think any of us have it all right. And it is difficult to plan for maximum digital impact and then also be a courteous human IRL. So I struggle with that. Apologies to anybody that I struggled with last week. But I think it's just an opportunity to keep coming back, and we were all given that opportunity as young folks in our careers to cut our teeth in a big networking room, and it wasn't always the best outcome. I remember,
right.
I've been in that situation where it's like, okay, how do I maximize the goodness that can come out of this event? And you're walking away and you're thinking, I did maximize it. And that's what I like about Dallas Meetup, is that I don't feel like I'll ever get to that point of maximization. I think that there's always additional excessive value to have to cull through to get to the meat.
Well, I have two more questions for you to wrap up this episode. One is that's going through my head as you're talking about this tremendous journey. You kind of ended up where you are as a happy accident, kind of following the path and seeing where it takes you. A lot of Dallas Meetup, I think you don't take enough credit. I think you guys are doing a lot of things great, but admittedly, some of it is right place, right time.
100%.
And so I'm sure that you have realized a lot of things that you didn't think you would know before you started down this journey. My question for you is, what are some of the new learnings and new lessons that you've learned through founding and hosting Dallas Meetup?
I feel like it's really just my patience, almost. Like I'm less quick to throw in the towel on a particular project or exercise or relationship, because I've seen more edge case scenarios now where I know how it could come back around, or I'm more at peace with it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'm just viewing things a little bit more comprehensively because I think that this has been so MVP the entire time that we've
Yeah.
incorporated new nuanced aspects of it, and it's grown. And
Hmm.
honestly, so many of the things that I've said that we would never do, we've done.
Yeah.
Just due to the growth, due to the market pulling instead of us pushing.
Hmm.
I'm a big, lean startup, build, measure, learn guy. Like, don't go out and build something in the hopes that people will come. Like, build it
Right.
with them, for them from the get.
Yeah.
And so, in some ways, I feel like we're just going to continue doing that until we quit getting that feedback from the market.
Yeah. And to hone in on that kind of fringe level thing, I think what you're saying, correct me if I'm seeing it differently, but is a lot of times we're so honed into like my specific goal of like, I got to get this sell, or I want to meet this one person or this. And then, but when we're a little more open minded, if we're a little more open handed and others first, I think when you look from a longer perspective, so many unforeseen things come around, or you did something for this person and that came back, or you had an opportunity over here with somebody who at the time you wouldn't have given the time of day because it wasn't your specific focus or your job, but you took a moment to entertain that person or build a relationship with that person. Maybe a year or two later, there's an opportunity there. Is that kind of what you're referring to?
And people change, people grow and mature as well. Like, so many of our team members I've picked up at different points in my career. So
That's a good point.
one of our executive advisors, Tad Perriman, has been a confidant and an advisor of mine since I was probably 23 years old in market. That's a great relationship to have. I have others on the team that I didn't give the time of day initially.
Yeah.
And I did kind of shut the door on them. And then they crawled through some glass, showed me what they were made of. And I was happy to onboard them, and that I've learned from them in the interim. So I think part of that is just my age. I'm 35 now. And it's weird because they always say, like, your brand is your reputation. It's what people say about you when you're not there. There's enough data in hindsight now, enough years in the rearview mirror of my career with good relationships, fractured relationships, where you really do see like, oh, it's how you treat everybody every day. And it literally is just going to keep going. Like, this is the one life that we have to live, the one career that we have.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes when you're in your 20s, early in your career, I'll get to the breadbasket of that later. I'll get to the real relationships that matter at that juncture or that stage. And it's like, these are the relationships that will produce those. So be that person today.
That's a great point.
I don't know if that makes sense at all.
That makes sense to me. I'm 42, so I'm kind of a little bit in this midlife situation. I'm also a skateboarder. And so having been a skateboarder for so long, I mean, by your early mid 20s, you're kind of long in the tooth as a skateboarder. So I've seen age very interestingly throughout my career. I remember I went from being on a skateboarding tour it's like a 23, 24-year-old to being the youngest person in a 300-person office. And I went from my life is over to my life hasn't even started yet. But where I am now, sometimes I think like, oh, I'm not going to achieve what I thought I was going to. Or the things that I thought I would have achieved should have happened by now. Or sort of a thing where I'm younger, I'm thinking, oh, that's going to come, or I don't have to worry. And now it's kind of like, this is now.
I have words to that. I always characterize it that I'm running towards this mountain in the distance, and I get up to it, and it is really just a foothill in the foreground of the real mountain that I want to climb. So I'm going to go, I know enough at this point to go around it or over it.
Yeah.
You don't want to have to go all the way back down, but the real thing I want to climb, the real trajectory is in the distance still. So I feel like I never get 100% of what I was coming for, but I came and got 90% of it and then 100% of the learnings. And I'm still going for more context for the greater prize that maybe even I haven't allowed myself to envision or grasp.
Well, what I was taking from what you're saying is, I think, a little different from the standpoint of like, understand that what you have now is what you have. Yes, we want to grow things, but don't just overlook, like if we're talking about like this Dallas Meetups room of a bunch of great people, don't overlook this moment and understand that who you're going to build with to get to that mountain are the people who are here today.
Mm-hmm.
So don't think, oh, I'm looking past these people or crawling over these people.
The whole
Who's going with me?
market is a case in point for that. It's if you don't see what you want to see in the market, do it. And then no one will stop you, by the way. And then you'll go to number one. There's nothing stopping you.
Right.
You always think that the big corporate magic tube machine is going to spit it out at the end. No, it's just people. And
that was such an eye-opener when I got in after college to the world of business. I always had this perspective of there's a way for things to be done. And I think there is kind of a way for things to be done still in a certain way. But I always thought that these big corporations know how to do it. And it turns out that a company is just people together who are all trying together. And yet it varies experience, ability, talent, yes. But there's nobody who's just like knows it all. It's people being resourceful, working hard, collaborating for a common goal.
Arguably, the corporations are the least in control of their processes and whatnot. It's like the nimble startup teams that are like shepherding the market, that are just doing, and everybody else is emulating, and then they get to the point of bloat and turnover and publicly traded nature that they're backfilling and duct taping stuff, and you know, but it really is, I guess, right there in front of you that it's just be the change that you want to see in the world. We didn't realize that this didn't exist as we were creating it, and then we were almost surprised as we went to every new vertical, and they were like, you know, there really is no 50-yard line of business in Dallas. There really is no acronymed organization that brings all of us together in a cohesive, collaborative way.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, the EDC said that, the marketers said that, the VCs said that, and still it's not dawning on me. This is product market fit. This is something. This is a moment in time.
Right. I love that perspective. It's an entrepreneur's perspective of if you see a better way to do something, take a step forward and be the one to do it.
Absolutely.
Last question for you, and this is one that I ask every single guest. And feel free to take this wherever you would like to take it, whether it's a personal lesson, whether it's professional currently, whether it's something that is still relevant or earlier or further out. The question is, what is the most important learning you've experienced throughout your career?
What is the most important learning I've experienced?
What's the most important lesson you've learned through your career?
It's just that patience layer. I go back to this, and I'm sorry, I feel like a broken record, but really what you build today, like the cake is all the ingredients put together, and get started today on whatever you're going to do that is going to be scalable. I would just say that I always thought that the next thing was the last thing, John. So I was the guy, I remember when my parents, when I got my first seed check into the first startup, one of the most fun conversations that they sat me down and had was, your life might change. You might, I mean, people could target you, that you could be affluent in the future. Like, and it was such an exciting like moment where it's like, oh, I might actually make it out on tour one day, you know?
Yeah.
And of course that didn't happen from that particular, you know, interaction, but it got me into Y Combinator, which was a credentialing item that I will use for the rest of my career and that I use copiously today. It's always going to build on itself, and just enjoy the process. Just be patient, enjoy the process. I get to actually stop and smell the roses so much more now than I did even probably 24 months ago, I would say.
Yeah.
It's a constant like maturation and kind of burning off some of the testosterone, as it were, of that short-sightedness, but really just extend your value realization horizons, do right by people today, and the sum will be the sum of the parts. Like, I'm getting to pay off everything I ever did in my career that tactically I didn't enjoy. I didn't enjoy putting that AdWords campaign together. I didn't enjoy, why do I have to send this PO over to this agency? Like, but now understanding the high level context for all of that allows me to shepherd this. Is it a media outlet? Is it a publication? Is it an experiential networking group? Yes, all of the above. So I think that just enjoy those character refining moments and look forward to getting to employ them elsewhere in your career.
That's awesome. That's fantastic advice. I guess one more question for you. How can people get involved and attend the next Dallas Meetup?
DallasMeetup.com. We publish all of our events. It is not behind a paywall. We are not trying to hide it from you. So follow Dallas Meetup on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. And then DallasMeetup.com. Just drop an email address and you'll hear from us with the next event.
Perfect. Well, I so enjoy having you here today. Really appreciate you bringing everybody together here in our Dallas business ecosystem. And it's been a pleasure having you on the DLC Drop podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.